Alright everybody, I'm back today to do another TikTok recommendation, and this film that I'm going to be talking about today is probably one of the weirdest, most unique films I've seen in quite some time. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne is directed by Walerian Borowczyk. In 19th century London, a sex maniac sneaks into the engagement party of Dr. Henry Jekyll and Miss Fanny Osborne, turning the events into a nightmarish whirlpool of murder and debauchery. So the first shot of this film really hooks you immediately. There's this young girl being chased by a man down the alleyway, and he ends up killing her and running off. And then we're just taken into this giant manor and estate where Dr. Jekyll lives with his fiancée, Fanny Osborne, and they're having a get-together for their engagement party. But it's not really introduced in that way. They're just in there, all these people are coming together, and they immediately sit down at a dinner table and they start having these discussions about politics, sex, all different kinds of things. And then people start getting killed off one by one, and it just ends up becoming this crazy, surreal, wild movie that I did not expect. But I didn't love this movie, and there's some problems with it, and I think one of the problems with it is it's almost too ambiguous as to what's going on. I'm someone who loves art house cinema. I have for a very long time. But this movie almost teeters the line of that it loses itself at moments. There's a lot of really dry moments where it's just people navigating their way from one room to another, talking about really mundane subject matter, which would be understandable if it was like trying to get you in like a slice of life mentality. But the conversations that are the most poignant are the ones where they're discussing sex and conservatism, because that's the parallel of obviously Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll's alternate personality is considered like a deviant, so the idea of like how conservatives portray people who are more sexual in nature and how sex plays a part of their lives more than in a person who's more conservative. There's a really brilliant scene in the film where one of the guys who's like a staunch, really conservative person is like tied up in a chair in a room, and his daughter comes in and like she forces him to watch her have sex with this guy. There's a lot of really fascinating commentary like that in the film, but for an hour and 20-minute runtime, it is incredibly bloated. There's a lot of things I feel like in this movie that could have been chopped out. It doesn't even really, and that's the thing, like if you look at a film like A Ghost Story, the David Lowery film, which is a complete art house piece, that a lot of it is very mundane shots of people in rooms, just like either thinking about loss or grief or engaging in that in some way, shape, or form. You're building that atmosphere, you're creating that tension, where a lot of the scenes in this film where they're drier and there's not much going on, it doesn't really contribute to that atmosphere or where your headspace is at as a viewer. And I think a lot of that could be tightened up in a way that made you more excited for the third act punch of the film, which there are some really great moments in the third act punch of this movie. And I had a lot of fun watching those parts. I just feel like for a film that's an hour and 25 minutes, it could have been tidied up even more, or there could have been more introduced to keep the runtime to feel a little bit more like it was utilizing each second of frame. And that's upsetting to me because this is a film I really wanted to love. There's a lot about it I do love. There's some really goofy, over-the-top moments that I appreciate, but it never 100% plays into the schlock enough to be funny all the time. There's just a couple of moments. There's a character, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's in an all-red suit. He's an older gentleman, and he is just like eccentric and over-the-top and absurd, and his character really, in my opinion, steals the show. The leads are okay. They're all kind of like run-of-the-mill. Udo Kier does a good job. He's always good in most everything I've ever seen him in, but I don't think he's the standout in this performance whatsoever. I think it's all of the side characters. They're so much more interesting. I do love the atmosphere and the cinematography in this film. It's very bleak and dark and like a cold night. You can almost just feel it inside of you when you're watching the movie, and that's something I greatly appreciated. But this was streaming on the Criterion channel. I think it's one that's interesting enough that you should definitely watch. It's definitely unique and an interesting perspective, especially I believe this movie was released in 1981, and so a lot of the subject matter that it's tackling is really fascinating, and obviously it's based on original source material that I've never read, but I would be really interested to see how close the source material is to the actual film that was produced. And yeah, this is an interesting movie. You should definitely check it out if you have a Criterion Channel subscription for the month of October. I think even if you don't love it, there'll be enough in it that you can pull from it that you'll enjoy the time that you spend watching. So have you seen The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was a lot of fun. It's definitely very different. It's unique, but it's one that you won't forget when you watch it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.